your ass kicked.
Don't be conservative. Tell me I got my ass kicked.
You
that's
did.
What I want to hear.
42 points. Do I need to say anything else?
What happened in this game? I don't think Draymond should have been suspended at all.
Are you out of your damn mind? You are out of your damn mind.
Hey, Josh, can you smell?
Really?
Cooking. Has come back to SmackDown
and completely stolen Cody Rhodes' WrestleMania moment. This is total. No, you don't get to talk right now.
Oh, really?
No.
You don't get to talk.
No.
I am projecting. That's what I do with the media. You guys are afraid to put your freaking takes out there. Yes, that's what I'm doing.
You, again, just
I know how sports media works. This is my job. It is a Tuesday, fresh off week 1 in the National Football League. Welcome to the September 10th, 2024 edition of Championship Rings. I'm Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. With me tonight is from the Ungar to the Max YouTube channel, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show, as always, Josh Ungar. Josh, I can't wait to talk week 1 with you, but unfortunately, the first topic that we have tonight, I know we both just want to rip the Band-Aid off here.
This is not a topic I want to cover, but we're part of the sports media, so we have to. I'm personally not going to make a video about it on my YouTube channel, but Deshaun Watson is unfortunately back in the news for more allegations.
So this time, and if you guys have read the Pro Football Talk article that Mike Florio wrote yesterday, really disturbing allegations against Deshaun Watson for not only sexual assault, but battery and domestic violence as well. The NFL has basically said they've came out and they are going to treat this, like it's a new case. They're not going to take any discipline on it right away. So this is where we're at with this. Obviously, as Cleveland Browns fans, we're both in the area. Josh is a bigger Browns fan than me. We're going to get to the game side of things in a little bit, but obviously, I think the performance Sunday just amplified the Deshaun Watson situation. And, I had said way back when the trade was made in March of 2022, at the time I had defended the move. And by the way, for all you people out there, and I think, Josh, you may be one of those people that think the Browns should have kept Baker Mayfield. I think the Baker Mayfield-Kevin Stefanski relationship was over even prior to the Deshaun Watson trade. I don't want to get into that right now, but I'm just saying that I think that a lot of this stems from Baker's played well in Tampa, Deshaun's not played well in Cleveland. I get it. The bottom line being here, though, is I think the hope is that last year was going to be the year that Deshaun Watson came back to his quote-unquote Houston Texans form. That did not happen, and Deshaun has been weirdly injured, not injured. His relationship with Kevin Stefanski has seemed to be on and off, and in my opinion, again, the allegations that came out today, or last night, I should say, were absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. Now, the Browns are not going to do this, even though they should. If I was Jimmy Haslam, if I was Kevin Stefanski, if I was Andrew Berry, I said this today. I made a video on it. I made a TikTok on it. I think the Browns personally need to suspend Deshaun Watson. Team suspension. I don't think he should play Sunday against Jacksonville or moving forward. I think this is a distraction for the team. I think this is a distraction for the locker room. The issue the Browns have is unless Deshaun Watson is suspended by the week, which if he is suspended by the week, at that point, there is a loophole in his contract where the Browns could cut him and essentially owe him no money. But until Deshaun Watson is suspended by the week, at this point because the Browns have moved a lot of that salary cap into a signing bonus. If the Browns were to cut Deshaun Watson today, they would have a dead cap of 171 million. Obviously, they can't do that. And I don't think Jimmy Haslam is going to want to bench his, 45 million a year, $230 million guaranteed starting quarterback. So it's not going to happen, but it absolutely should happen. It's absolutely horrific. And I will add this. There are some people like myself who going into this year wanted to give Deshaun Watson, the football player, the benefit of the doubt. Now I don't care about Deshaun Watson, the football player. It's very hard to root for a Cleveland Browns football team right now. It's very hard to root for that organization when that man is the starting quarterback. Everything, in my opinion, about the Browns' outlook and everything of my thoughts about Deshaun Watson changed yesterday. Because originally, if you remember, when the reporting came out about the 22 cases, it was a little suspect. The accusers kept going back and forth. He obviously eventually 21 of those 22 cases, but the general sentiment was, okay, maybe not all of these cases were factually accurate. Now I don't know. And again, it makes me think because of how bad Watson played on Sunday, he knew this was coming because it did come down Monday afternoon. I have a hard time believing Deshaun didn't have an inkling about this case. But to me, again, at this point, I think even if the Browns were to win every game this year and win the Super Bowl, people will now not forget Deshaun Watson for what he did. I think this changed everything. And unfortunately, it's a bad look for the Browns organization and everybody involved, including the National Football League. Josh, did I miss anything? Go ahead and add whatever you want.
So I'm just going to say this. For those people that say you can root, or for those people that say you have to root for the quarterback if you root for the team, I say, no, you don't. Like last season, I know it's two completely different situations, but last season, when Joe Flacco became the starting quarterback for the Browns, I rooted for the Browns, but I didn't root for Joe Flacco because I won't forget his time with the Baltimore Ravens, who, in my opinion, are the Browns' biggest rivals. So, and Flacco beat us all the time as when he was the starting quarterback for Baltimore. Again, I get that it's not the same situation here, but while I can root for the Browns as a team, I can't root for Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback. I just can't do it. I don't condone anything he did. Whether all of it is true or not doesn't matter to me. Um, it's kind of like what happened with Penn State. I don't condone what Jerry Sandusky did or anything that happened. The reason I became a Penn State fan is because it was really cool to see how they overcame all of that stuff and became, one of the top programs in college football. So, again, I understand that the Deshaun Watson situation is different from the Jerry Sandusky Penn State stuff, but it seemed like a comparison that I was able to make at still. Hopefully you see a little bit of the similarity there.
And again, say what you want about the Browns moving off Baker Mayfield to go get Deshaun Watson, giving him the $230 million guaranteed. I still believe that, for whatever reason, and I brought this up in a text conversation I had with a couple of buddies of mine last night. The Browns for the last two seasons have moved Deshaun Watson's cap number into a signing bonus, which I know most of you are obviously not NFL cap gurus. What that means is basically his cap number is lowered. It frees up cap space, but you're kicking the can down the road. He still is getting paid the same amount of money. Why the Browns freed up that cap space 2 years in a row and then not use it is beyond me. And now you're stuck in a situation where, again, even if you wanted to cut ties with Deshaun Watson, they cannot unless he is suspended by the NFL. Once he is suspended by the NFL, at that point, in my opinion, if the Browns don't cut Deshaun Watson, it would be an absolute travesty if we get to that point. I I personally wish that last Sunday was Deshaun Watson's last game in a Browns uniform. I know that's not going to happen. I fully expect him to suit up Sunday and start against Jacksonville. But I want to reiterate here, I think he should be suspended without pay, leave from the team. I think it should be a team suspension.
I think he should be suspended for the rest of the season. I don't care how it hurts our potential playoff chances. I don't care about any of that other stuff. You need to send a message that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated. And when he was suspended originally for 11 games, the NFL can deny it all they want. They intentionally made it an 11-game suspension so that his first game as a Cleveland Brown would be in Houston against the Texans back in 2022, I believe that was. Personally, I think it would have been better if his first game had been in Miami against the Dolphins, because you had all those storylines with the Dolphins trying to replace Tua with Deshaun Watson and all that stuff. But that's just me. But clearly, the 11-game suspension and the $5 million fine wasn't enough. So if it were up to me, he would be suspended for the rest of the season, and he would get at least a $100 million fine.
Well, let's put this in perspective. The new case that has came in, the NFL has said basically that it's going to treat it as sort of a new investigation, and that case occurred prior to any suspension by the week.
I do understand that, but like the fact that, again, I get that this new case is from like 2020 or whatever.
From October 2020, it was during that season. It was during his last season of full play when he was still a member of the Houston Texans.
Right. So I do understand that. But at the same time, the fact that another case has come out, clearly shows that while he hasn't been in the news since the 11-game suspension, for any new cases, let me clarify. He hasn't been in the news for any new cases. I get that. But still, like, the fact that another case has come out, like, I think that warrants a suspension for the rest of the season. That's just me personally.
All right, let's talk about the man that got paid on Sunday, to my shock, prior to the 4:25 p.m. kickoff in now Huntington Bank Field between the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. Dak Prescott got paid. Josh, we talked about this all offseason. I kept saying I don't think it was going to happen, and I was right until Sunday morning at about 11 a.m. Eastern time, and Jerry Jones decided to make Dak Prescott even more money than what Deshaun Watson got in his contract in Cleveland.
Yes, by, I think it was literally $1 million. Mm-hmm. But, I am equally, if not more, surprised than you. I thought Dak was going to I thought Dak was going to go the entire season without a contract, kind of be on like this prove it kind of grind, if you will, and then be able to say to the Cowboys, see, I am worth this new contract. Or he can say to the 31 other teams, like, hey, clearly Dallas doesn't want me. I'm available. Like, I thought that's how he was going to go about it, but no. So the only contract left is Micah Parsons.
So we had this conversation in probably late June, early July about Trevor Lawrence. We had the same conversation right before we went on our couple-week hiatus at the end of July about Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa. Dak Prescott to me is in that same component, which is he's a B to B plus quarterback who, with great talent around him and great coaching, on some weeks can look like an A minus to an A quarterback. But can Dak Prescott lead you to the promised land? And we talked about it, right? Trevor Lawrence got his deal. Jordan Love got his deal. Tua Tagovailoa got his deal. Dak was going to get more money per year than those guys. And we know the end of our salary cap is going to keep going up and up and up. And we know that obviously right now 60 million seems like a lot in 2 3 years. It probably won't look like that much again if they do what Andrew Berry and Co. in Cleveland have done with Watson's contract and manipulated the cap and put it mostly into a signing bonus. Um, my big thing here for Dallas is sort of the same thing with CeeDee Lamb. You knew you wanted to get this done. It's why you did not spend any money during the offseason besides Ezekiel Elliott and Eric Kendricks. Why wait this long? I guess it's a marketing ploy, first day of the new year. Hey, we got Dak signed. They had to cross some T's and dot some I's. He just signed it that Sunday morning. But for the life of me, I don't understand why you're waiting this long because you're only hurting yourself by paying him more money. And if your whole investment is CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, we assume Micah Parsons, but if you pay Micah what we think Mike is probably going to get, you're not going to be able to put a team around these guys.
Yeah. Um, and all we heard, what was the catchphrase we kept hearing all offseason from the Dallas Cowboys? It was 2 words. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember it vividly. All in.
Yes. And we all kept trying to figure out what all in meant. Did Jerry Jones mean all in on free agency? Did he mean all in on the draft? What did he mean? The way I interpreted that phrase was like, I'm not giving anybody a contract extension. I'm putting all my poker chips in the middle and I'm going all in. It's boom or bust for this team this season. But he seems to have gone back on that. So is Micah going to get his contract at some point this season? I don't know.
I don't suspect that they would do it during the season. It's very rare for a guy to get a contract extension in the middle of a season.
We shall see. I mean, Dallas looked pretty good against the Browns on Sunday. I don't want to say they looked great, because Deshaun Watson looked absolutely atrocious against the Cowboys, and I'll give credit to the Dallas defense, but at the same time, it's not like the Cowboys were doing anything special on defense. Deshaun Watson and the offense as a whole just looked rattled. I don't know why. Because the defense for the most part did their job. The defense for the most part did their job. The problem was they kept having to go out on the field because the offense would go 3 and out, 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 3 and out. Like, it felt like every time the offense would go out there, it's like, okay, they're just going to go 3 and out.
I'll talk about the game a little more in depth in a couple of seconds when we get there. I'll just say this. Remember last year, Cowboys started off really hot, beat the brakes off the Giants week 1. Week 2, I believe they took about Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. And then what happened week 3? They lost to the Arizona Cardinals. So,
yeah, and they have the New Orleans Saints this week, and then they host the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, let's talk about your guy, Jordan Love. Obviously, what a weird game that was Friday night in Brazil. What is it with every big game the Eagles play? The turf is absolute trash. Um, I don't have the answer for that. They're playing on a soccer field out there in Brazil. Very entertaining game, back and forth. Obviously, Green Bay's got a chance to win the game. Jordan Love goes for a Hail Mary. He is right next to Jalen Carter, who is on the ground. Jalen Carter does not dive for his knee.
He grabbed his knee
he
though,
simply it is
which
not
was
a
a
it
it
is
was a
not a
dirty
dirty play. That was a
balls.
football
No, you
play.
don't get to
That was
talk
a
anymore.
football play. That
You
was a
don't get to
football
talk
play.
anymore,
That
sir.
was a football play.
No, it
That was a
wasn't.
football play. That
No,
was
it
a
wasn't.
football play.
It
That
was
was a
not.
football play.
It
We
was
could do
not.
this for 7 hours. That was a football play.
It
He
was
is
not.
on the ground. He is not diving at him. He is
Don't care.
grabbing at his leg to bring him to the ground. Jordan Love was still in the pocket. That was not at
Dirty
all a
play.
dirty play. You've
Dirty
never
play.
played football in your life, so you don't know what a dirty play is. That was not a dirty play.
Dirty play.
Talk to any NFL player; they'll tell you that was not a dirty play.
Well, it was.
Explain what was so dirty about it, then, Josh.
Dude, he literally like grabs a hold of his leg and
Yes, to bring him to the ground. And unfortunately, in his grasp, Jordan Love's knee pops. That's light. That's football.
to me that's a dirty play.
How is it dirty? It's not like he is intentionally diving at his leg. He is grabbing.
From
There
my
is a difference.
I know he wasn't dive bombing because that would have been a penalty. I get that. But from my perspective, the way he grabbed his leg, it seemed like he was trying to injure him.
He was trying to get him on the ground.
Oh God. I'm not even gonna read Grandizer's latest comment in the live chat. But
Okay. To answer the question on the screen, Malik Willis is the current Green Bay Packers starting quarterback. They have the Indianapolis Colts this weekend. I've already bet the Colts -3. Malik Willis is not an NFL quarterback unless he's coached by me in Madden NFL 25. Then he is an MVP candidate. But nonetheless, they have Indianapolis, they have Tennessee, and then they have Minnesota, who looked really good, albeit it was the Giants. But we both predicted Sam Darnold could have a good year in that system. In my opinion, if Jordan Love doesn't get back in 3 weeks, Green Bay's in trouble. I think they can survive this stretch right here, but he's got to be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, they have Indianapolis, Tennessee, Minnesota, and then a huge game out in SoFi Stadium against the LA Rams. Jordan Love needs to be back for that game specifically. By
the way, and if he does come back in that game, he's not going to be 100% in that game. It's going to take him 2-3 more weeks to get back and in game shape and get that knee comfortable.
Right. I agree with you. But I just think that game between the Packers and Rams is going to be huge for the NFC playoff picture because I believe you and I both have the Rams making the playoffs. You do not have the Packers in. I do.
I did not. And I'll tell you what, this is a big game because this was one of those go either way games on the schedule for me. I gave Green Bay the advantage at home. For me, is this a game that puts the Colts, from 9 to 10 wins and puts them in the playoffs?
Yeah, I have the Colts in the playoffs, and they looked really good, albeit in a loss at home.
Anthony Richardson completed 9 passes. They were the most beautiful 9 completions I've ever seen somebody make in a football game.
Yes.
Especially the one when he was falling back and hit Alec Pierce 60 yards in the air to complete on a rope. You can see the talent in him, obviously, and we know how brilliant Shane Steichen is. And their defensive line was actually getting a lot of pressure on Stroud. Now, Joe Mixon had a huge game. And I think that Green Bay is going to have to rely on that running game and Josh Jacobs, who got going a little bit in the second half against that Philly defense. He had the one long run. Um, but I'll be honest, Josh, and this is where you and I are going to differ off course again. I know you're going to call me crazy, but I wasn't impressed by Jordan Love when he did play Friday night. I didn't think he played that well. 50% completion percentage. I thought Jaron Reed had a couple of big plays, obviously, but there was a couple throws. There was one where he didn't slip, and for whatever reason, he just dirted the ball on the ground. It was a play action pass. It was early in the second half. They had Jaron Reed over the middle, and he just dirted it. Um, you could tell that the Eagles' defensive line was starting to get a lot of weight in the game. I thought he got a little bit of skittish in the pocket. And let's be honest, Philly had the two bad mistakes to start the game, the horrible interception by Hurts, followed by the missed snap by the new center Cam Urges. And Green Bay comes away from that situation with only 2 field goals. So is that Green Bay's offense? Is that Philly's defense making a stand? We don't know, but Green Bay is going to have to get the red zone corrected.
Yeah. Um, no, I won't say you're crazy in this case. Yeah, I'm a huge Jordan Love fan, but in this case, no, he didn't look great on Friday night against the Eagles. I'll give you that. I think he'll be better when once he gets back. But I also agree with what you said earlier that it will take him a couple weeks to get back to being fully healthy. But here's what I'm wondering. Do the Packers maybe try calling Ryan Tannehill to come in and take over as
There's speculation out there. Here's what I'll say. And whether it's gamesmanship or not by Matt LaFleur, I don't know. But he has yet to rule out Jordan Love for this coming up game against Indianapolis. I think if they knew Jordan Love was going to be out for the full 6 weeks, they would call Ryan Tannehill. I think the fact that they have not, by all intents and purposes, called him again, LaFleur has not fully ruled him out yet for Sunday, tells me I think they think 3 weeks is sort of the max for this injury, and they are going to try to get him back maybe by the Minnesota game.
so if it turns out that Malik Willis is the starting quarterback for this Sunday against the Colts, do you think the Packers have to completely change their offense?
Well, Malik Willis has started 3 games in his NFL career and has yet to throw for 100 yards. I think that answers your question.
Fair enough. Because, you got talented wide receivers in this at the skill
Well,
position
that's
group.
what you say. The only one I saw on Friday night who showed up was Sharon Reed. Did any of those tight ends play? I didn't see him. Watson made one nice catch. He had another touchdown opportunity. He slipped in the back of the end zone. I didn't even see Romeo Dobbs out there. I think he was playing against ghosts because he didn't even exist.
Okay. Okay. That's how they played on Friday against the Eagles. How did they play at the end of down the stretch at the end of last season?
I
No.
keep telling you that was last year. That's not this year. The NFL is not linear.
Okay, fair. But you still have to take that into account.
Well, do I? Because I watched a Green Bay team who, again, yes, they looked good in spurts offensively, but they looked part, especially in that second quarter through the end of the third quarter, they looked like the Green Bay from the first half of last year. And not only that, let me add this on the Green Bay defense side of the ball because this is something nobody talked about. I don't know if you want to say give credit to Philly's offense or discount Green Bay's defense, but the Eagles had the ball at the start of the fourth quarter with 8 minutes to go in that game. The Green Bay Packers did not get the ball back until 27 seconds left in that game. And the only reason why they got the ball back is because Jalen Hurts and Cam Burgess had another missed snap on the brotherly shove. If they do not get a missed handle on that snap, Philadelphia runs the clock out. Now, Green Bay also does cover in that scenario, but Philly would run the clock out, and Green Bay would have went 8 straight minutes without getting the ball back, and Jordan Love would have never gotten hurt.
I mean, it's all a bunch of shoulda, woulda, coulda in that
Well,
situation.
my point is, Green Bay's defense was out there for 8 straight minutes and they could not stop the run. That is not a week one, we'll fix it. That is a concern.
I do agree with you on that. Look, like, yes, I'm high on the Packers, but I'm also going to be realistic. I'm not going to be like the Packers were perfect on Friday.
Listen, all I'm saying is some people picked this team to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm not going that far.
I didn't see it. You were higher on Green Bay last year than I was. I was really high on them. If you remember, in January, I picked them to at least cover against Dallas. I said, I don't think they're going to win, but I said if there's going to be one upset this weekend, it's going to be Green Bay. And then when they did it, I gave them a great chance to beat San Francisco, and they had them until Jordan Love threw the game away.
Right. But we're going to find out now what type of coach Matt LaFleur is. But let me give credit to your Philadelphia Eagles for the way they played in the game on Friday. Because they came out and just said, we're going to run the ball right down your throats, and you're not going to be able to stop us. They just kept running it over and over and over again with Saquon Barkley. I know you guys got Devontae and A.J. Brown involved. Don't get me wrong. Like, your passing game was still there. But just from watching that game, it's clear to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're more of an Eagles fan than I am, but from my perspective, it looks like the Eagles want to be a run-first team this season.
I don't think it's run-first. I think it's going to be 50-50. I think it's what this situation called for was we're going to rely on our offensive line and just bully. Now, for the record, I thought Jalen Hurts made 3 bad decisions. One of them should have been a pick 6. 2 of them were picks. So if you go back and watch the second interception, the one Jair picked off in the end zone, A.J. Brown was actually open. He slips on the turf. If you watch the All-22, wasn't as bad as it looked on TV. But again, I thought Jalen was at least a little more comfortable offensively. I loved the more motion with Kellen Moore. Get him under center, a little more pistol, more motion, get the ball out of your hands, and have answers to the blitz. That was the most encouraging sign I saw all Friday night from my team. They had answers to the blitz. Jalen Hurts was comfortable with it. When the Green Bay sent the blitz, he was on time and accurate. And again, they turned the ball over twice in their own zone the first 10 minutes of the game. They still ended up with 34 points.
Yeah. Again, like I said, you're more of an Eagles fan than I am, so I understand why you're saying it's going to be more 50-50. But it looked like again, this is just from my perspective, it looks like they want to be a run-first team. We'll see how that goes throughout the season if it does become more 50-50 like you said. But, man, I can't wait to see what Saquon looks like back in Lincoln Financial Field on Monday night against Atlanta.
From my team to your team, it's now time we dive into a little bit of the actual game between the Cowboys and Browns. Listen, I had picked this game to be low scoring, 16-13 Cleveland. I had said I did not think this was going to be a very entertaining game, and unfortunately I was right on that. Listen, I had said going into the year, and you remember me saying this, I know, that the Browns defense overall, I get it. They were historically good at home last year. I did not think the Browns defense was as good as people thought it was. I thought they were only good at home, and they got shredded on the road, which means you're not that good of a defense. And I know you said they didn't play that bad. I get it. There was a lot of short fields, but Dak was also carving up that defense. And Dallas went up and down the field on him about 2 to 3 times until obviously the defense took over. For the life of me, again, and I will say this again, I know you and I are on the same page with this. How has Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year 2 times in a row, yet all he freaking does is throw bubble screens? Why on 2nd and 10 are you throwing a 2-yard out route to David Njoku?
I
Make it
don't
make
know.
sense to me. I didn't understand the game plan. They did not even try to run the football. Didn't
Which makes no sense
did
because
not understand that at all. And again, the whole Watson situation, we covered it in the first segment. Who knows the lawsuit had anything to do with it? But
which I
you watch the all 22. It didn't matter if he had a good offensive line on the play or a bad offensive line on the play. He was awful. And let me make this point. Sunday Night Football, the Rams are down 3 offensive linemen. They're shoveling offensive linemen throughout the whole game. Matthew Stafford put on an absolute clinic with basically just him and Cooper Kupp. Why can't Kevin Stefanski do that when his 2 offensive tackles are out? They knew Jedrick Wills was not going to play all week. They knew pretty much Jack Conklin was going to play. They were holding out hope, but they were anticipating he was not going to play. And they let Jones and James Hudson go one-on-one with Micah Parsons for most of the game. That was an objectively disaster game plan. And I also will say this, because this was not talked about among the Browns media brass, and I don't understand why. The loss of Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach. I said it in our season preview. It was going to be a massive loss, and it wasn't talked about. And I think I'm going to be right on that. And it's another reason why I predicted the Browns to finish last in the AFC North, that everything I said about the Browns entering the season came true on Sunday.
So we'll get to the Cincinnati part of this in a minute because you did include Cincinnati in this question as well. But in terms of the Browns, like I said earlier, I'm putting less of the blame on the defense. If I had to do percentages, I would go about 95% of the blame on the offense. 5%.
Oh, I think that's a little bit too harsh. I would go about 30% offense, 70% deep. Or excuse
No.
me, 70 offense, 30 defense.
Okay.
I think the defense deserves a little bit more blame than what you're saying.
The most I would go is 90-10. But I mean, like I was saying earlier, the offense was constantly going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. The defense can only hold up for so long until the dam breaks. But I mean, I don't get it. I get it. Like last season was last season, and this is a new season. Dallas brought in Mike Zimmer to be their new defensive coordinator. So I understand that. You can't take a lot from last season and bring it into this season. I get that, Brandon. But we saw how bad the Cowboys defense was when you run the ball right at them. I get it. We don't have Nick Chubb for these first 4 games, excuse me. But you still could have run the ball right at, right down the Cowboys' throats. You could have done that. And then maybe you could have established the play action pass and gotten Jerry Jeudy more involved, gotten Amari Cooper more involved. I don't get it. Like, I don't know if this is Ken Dorsey's offense. I don't know if this is Kevin Stefanski's offense.
I mean, Stefanski's calling the plays. Put the blame on Stefanski.
So, again, this is my question. And this is just a general question. If your head coach is going to be the one calling the offensive plays, what's the point of having an offensive coordinator? I don't get it.
This is one thing that not a lot of football fans know, that OCs are actually the ones running the meetings usually, even if you are the offensive play caller.
So that whole thing is just confusing to me. But if Deshaun Watson plays bad against the Jaguars this week in Jacksonville, I don't care that he's getting $230 million fully guaranteed. His ass is going on the bench, and I'm starting famous Jameis next week at home against the New York Giants. I don't care.
I hate to say this because it sounds bad, because, again, I live in Cleveland. I root for the Browns. I've never bet the Jaguars minus 3.5 when that line came out so fast in my life. I think the Browns are going to be destroyed on Sunday. I will tell you that right now. I don't think it's going to be close. I have a bad feeling about this team. I think nothing's in sync. Watson gets distracted. Offensive line looked like complete garbage. Now, saying that, the Browns are going to look amazing and they'll put up 30 against Jacksonville because that's the way football works. But I'm just telling you. And by the way, I hate to bring this up again. Everybody's favorite defensive player, 95, was once again pretty much non existent and handled for the most part by a left tackle who's a rookie. He had his 2 tackles, he had his 1 sack in garbage time, like he always does. Watching CeeDee Lamb, you can see on a replay, CeeDee Lamb runs a reverse jet to the left end of the defense. Myles Garrett is the right end. Instead of chasing down CeeDee Lamb, he's standing there like this, looking towards the sideline, but he's the defensive player of the year.
I I do understand your criticism. I fully understand your criticism. I'm it gets confusing for me at times as well watching Myles Garrett. I'm not going to lie. It was very interesting to see Dallas run that jet sweep a couple times.
And
Uh,
every time they did it, 8, 9 yards. They could. I'm convinced they could have done it the whole game.
yeah, but I want to flip it over to Cincinnati because we do have the Bengals included in this question.
Okay, so if you watch this game, this was a strange game. Um, New England, I got to give New England a little credit here. They were more physical. They ran the football. They played good defense. It was the week 1 surprise that we all said someone's going to get upset week 1. And when I heard Jamar Chase's contract situation was worse than I initially thought, I just kind of assumed that he was going to play and, there was no issue there. And I did not realize that T. Higgins was not going to play. When I heard that, I kind of thought New England's got a shot to win this game. And New England didn't even play that well. And really, the difference in the game was, they threw a touchdown to Gesicki that got taken away. And then the next play, New England gets a strip fumble. That was pretty much the difference in the game. But Cincinnati always starts off slow. They have Kansas City this week, and I don't know what to think of that game. They're probably going to lose. They're probably going to start 0-2. Would not be surprised if they do. Wouldn't be surprised necessarily, though, if they won either. But Joe Burrow in his career is now 1-10 in week 1 and week 2 games. So this is nothing new to Cincinnati. I think they will eventually figure it out. The concern part will come in if it's week 3 or week 4, because I know they got the Panthers coming up. I believe they got the Commanders coming up as well. And Chase is sitting out, or T. Higgins is still out. That's when I would start to get concerned if I'm Cincinnati. I'm not there yet. Also, because of the fact that Baltimore also lost to Kansas City, which helps.
Yes. So the Bengals, they lost to the Patriots in week 1. They're at Kansas City this week. Then they host Washington on Monday Night Football. At Carolina, Baltimore in week 5, Giants in week 6, at Cleveland in week 7, Philly in week 8, Raiders week 9, Baltimore again week 10.
So
Chargers.
that's manageable. I mean, just go the first 10 games there. Could they go 5-5 in those 10? Yeah. I could see that. But again, Cincinnati, it doesn't always seem to be them. They're right at 500, and then November, December, a lot like those old Andy Reid teams in Philly, a lot like those Belichick teams in New England. Take off in November, December football.
Yeah, but I will say this: how many more excuses are we going to give to the Bengals for like these week 1 and slow starts? Like, in the past it was the Browns, bad weather, Joe Burrow injury, something's not right, with whoever. Like, how many times are we going to keep allowing the Bengals to give these excuses?
I think that answer will come if Joe Burrow's healthy and they still make the AFC Championship game. That's all that matters for them.
Right, but like, are we just going to keep allowing them to get off the hook with these slow starts?
I mean, if you're the Final Four or you make it to the divisional round every year, yeah.
I guess, but at the same time, it's like We see Kansas City; they usually get off to fast starts, and
Well, but they didn't last year.
right, but they have Mahomes, so you know
Well, Cincinnati has Burrow, and if Burrow's healthy, the earliest they've been eliminated is the AFC Championship game.
that point is true. Um, but I will say this: watching New England, sure they didn't do a great offensively. Remember how like um we were talking about the Deshaun Watson stuff in the first segment. We were just talking about it a little bit. Who was the quarterback for the Browns in the first 11 games while he was out with his suspension?
Jacoby Brissett, and I never thought he played great. I thought he played the same way he played in New England, average enough.
Yes, but he was winning games for us. In his last game as a starter before Deshaun Watson came back, do you know who he beat in what turned out to be his final game here in Cleveland? Tom Brady. He beat
Oh,
Tom.
Tampa. If I
Yeah.
remember right, they blew him out that game.
Um, I'd have to
Or
go
was that
back and
the
look.
overtime game? I don't remember. Might have
It
been
might.
overtime against Brady.
It, I think it might have been overtime, but nonetheless, like, still, like, Jacoby Brissett. I'll look it up right now, actually. Um, because I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information here. Yeah, yeah, they beat Tampa Bay 23-17 in overtime.
Yep.
He got okay. It wasn't great, but he did get us to a 4-7 record. Uh, Not great, I'll give you that. But like Brissett in that game against Tampa specifically, 210 yards. The game before against Buffalo in Detroit, 224 yards. In just about every game except for week 1, he threw for at least 220 yards passing in every game except for week 1 against Carolina.
So Jacoby Brissett's numbers with the Browns, 64% of his completion percentage, which actually outside of last year with the Commanders, where he only played a couple games, was a career high. About 2,600 yards, 12 TDs, 6 picks. His career average, he for his career, he's averaging 61% completion percentage, which is okay in today's NFL. You like that to be closer to 63, 65. 10,000 yards, 51 touchdowns, 23 picks, so 2-to-1 interception ratio. Not bad, not great.
It's respectable though.
Yeah, for a backup though, which is why, and they were saying this on the pregame show. I don't know how much you caught of the pregame activity. Drake May is taking about 30% of the starter snaps for New England. That does not happen if you're not planning to play at some point very early this season. I'll just leave it at that.
I get that, but like when I go back and look at that 2022 season, he was serviceable, and I'm like, why didn't we just stick with him? I know we went 4-7, which isn't great, but like, you know, think about this for a second. The Browns made it into the playoffs last year because not because of Deshaun Watson, but because of guys like PJ Walker, Dorian Thompson Robinson. Yes, he won a key game against Pittsburgh, and Joe freaking Flacco. They didn't make it to the playoffs because of Deshaun Watson.
The
That's a,
worst. That was the worst thing ever to happen to the current Brown starting quarterback.
I, I mean, like I said earlier, I know it's not the same situation, but I feel like yes, you are allowed to root for your hometown team or whatever team you root for, but not support the quarterback. I did not support Joe Flacco when he was our starting quarterback because I do not forget about his time with the Baltimore Ravens. Because again, to me, the Ravens are the Browns' biggest rivals, and he beat us all the time when he was in Baltimore. So I can't forgive and forget. And I will not root for Deshaun Watson. No way, no how.
Speaking of Baltimore, Isaiah Likely's toe. Ugh. What a great fit. I was happy because I had Kansas City -3. They covered. I was jumping for joy. But ugh, for Baltimore. I think this was the worst case scenario if you're a Ravens fan. It's what we talked about last week, Josh. Lamar plays well. You play pretty well. You manage the game. You even get Mahomes to throw an interception. You're even in the turnover battle. You still lose.
Yeah. And didn't they get Derrick Henry for this type of situation?
And he got the ball the whole first drive and then really never got it the rest of the game.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I know everybody's going to point to like the two missed touchdown passes that Lamar threw. And sure, those were big parts of the game, big game-changing plays that were missed. I will agree with that sentiment. But for me, the biggest reason the Kansas City Chiefs won is because of the guy they got because they made the trade with the Buffalo Bills. Xavier Worthy, for me, was the biggest reason the Chiefs won this game. That's not
No,
to take away from what Patrick Mahomes did or what the Chiefs defense did or anything else. But to me, Xavier Worthy was the biggest reason the Chiefs won this game because
um,
of all the like game-changing plays he made, like that touchdown pass. Or no, it wasn't even a touchdown pass. It was like a jet sweep type
well, the
play.
touchdown pass is the one that he got wide open on. There was miscommunication by Marlon Humphrey. The,
Okay, I'm
the,
thinking of two
his,
different plays
his
then.
first touch was the jet sweep. That yeah, he just darted and went into the end zone. That was on the first drive of the game.
Okay,
I
then I'm
disagree. I disagree with you a little bit that Worthy was the biggest reason. I think the biggest reason was one, Justin Tucker missed a field goal. That was rare because that miss by Lamar would have been even bigger because it would have gave Baltimore the lead. Zay Flowers was wide open in the back of the end zone.
oh yeah.
And that game should have been over at the 2-minute warning, but Kansas City could not put Baltimore away, and their defense could not get a stop. Their defense played well. I think their defense played great. I think the biggest story that no one's talking about, talked about how great Isaiah Likely looked, and I get it, but Mark Andrews was also out there, and Chris Collinsworth on the broadcast kept saying, "Get the ball to Mark Andrews, get the ball to Mark Andrews," and there was times where you could tell he was freelancing, trying to get open, and Isaiah Likely was just that guy. So, and Andrews said he wasn't hurt coming off the injury. He's healthy. He trained all off season. It makes me wonder if Baltimore is going to go to more of that 12 personnel, or if Isaiah Likely becomes Lamar Jackson's number one option now over Mark Andrews, because he sure looked like it to me.
If I'm the Ravens, I'm going to more of that 12 personnel set because sure they didn't win the game, but they did seem to have success with that when they went to that 12 personnel set. But here's my biggest question with the Ravens is one, are they going to use Derrick Henry more than just one drive? But more importantly than that, you talked about it. Lamar missed Zay Flowers wide open. Was last season just a blip for the Ravens, or is Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and some Duvernay, are they going to come back this season and say, yes, we can be legit weapons for Lamar to throw to?
No, I think those guys are all legit weapons. I just think last year Lamar was on fire. He made every single play he could, and that's not going to repeat itself twice. And he also ran a lot Thursday night, made a lot of plays with his legs, but ultimately was obviously not enough. And now again, if you're the Ravens, you got to be like, man, we played maybe our best game of the year, our best game against Kansas City that we played in the last couple of years, and we still lost.
Right. Like, I don't know what you do now if you're Baltimore.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the debut of the number one overall pick, Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears, because my God, was this an ugly game. And I almost won in fantasy despite Caleb Williams putting up only 7 mere fantasy points, despite him only throwing for a mere 60 yards. Um, and despite all that, the Chicago Bears were down 17-0, and they did what the Chicago Bears almost never do. And they won the freaking football game. Now, I will say this, they won the game because of a blocked punt, and they won the game because Will Levis is in a competition with Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, and Bryce Young for the worst quarterback in football. That interception was the worst interception I might have ever seen a quarterback ever throw. That I have no idea. The pocket was actually clean. Will Levis trips to his left into pressure and underthrows it right to the Chicago Bears. Um, Now Caleb did miss a wide open Keenan Allen for a touchdown. I think that's going to take time. It's going to take more time than I originally thought. Keenan Allen did drop a wide open pass in the end zone, which you never see. So that should have been a touchdown pass for Caleb. And that was near the end of the first half. I think Caleb is already starting to learn the NFL defenses are faster than Pac-12 defenses. There was a couple of plays he tried to play hero ball, and Tennessee got him in the backfield. I think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get better week in and week out. I still have high expectations for this Bears team. My concern has not raised any bit. All I'm doing is being a little more conservative in my expectations for the Bears this week against Houston.
That's going to be a very intriguing game, and it might just be on my list of my top 5 games to watch this week. That might be a small spoiler. We'll have to wait and see in the next segment or so. But you look at the Bears' schedule. They beat Tennessee in week 1. They got Houston this week, Indy in week 3, and then a pretty big game in week 4 when they host the LA Rams. Then you got the Carolina Panthers, Jacksonville in London, and then you got the bye week, Washington, Arizona, and then New England.
So that's a lot of 50-50 games and not a ton of great defenses. Houston, I think, and maybe the Rams are the 2 hardest games in that stretch.
I would throw Indianapolis in there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I do think, I'm glad they got the win. I think if they didn't get the win, it would be a different story. But now I think that win is a good learning experience for them. And listen, it's just going to take some time.
Yeah. It should be a fascinating matchup on Sunday night.
As I said, Will Levis is in a competition with Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, and Bryce Young. By the way, one of the things is not like the other in terms of the money they're making. Yeah. Those guys are in a competition for the worst quarterback in football.
Yes. Honestly, I think you mentioned the Titans, you mentioned the Giants, you mentioned the Browns, you mentioned the Panthers. You mentioned 5 teams right there. I think
4.
Okay, I think 3 of them are going to be looking for their franchise quarterback come the 2025 draft.
Which one is not?
I'm going to give Bryce Young a little bit of a break, just a little.
Hey, I tried. I can't unsee what I saw Sunday. I try to be optimistic about the Panthers. I'm already done. Chance. They're done. Right. They're the worst team in football again. Let's get into our top 5 NFL Week 2 games. Go ahead.
All right, so let me make sure I got my list up. So, because I don't want to screw up like I have the past couple times. So, I'll let you go first, actually.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to go from number 5 to number 1. Number 5, Josh, we just talked about it. A little bit of a spoiler from the last segment. Sunday Night Football. Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud, the number 2 overall pick in last year's class, the number 1 overall pick in this year's class. Will Chicago put up a fight against Houston, or will they ultimately get blown out? Will C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans put on a display, and we get to see the number one overall pick, the prime, the guy who is expected to save the franchise in Chicago in prime time on Sunday Night Football. Number four, we're going to the city of brotherly love for Monday Night Football between the Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, Monday Night Football in prime time, taking on my Philadelphia Eagles. Atlanta looked awful week one in what looked like a Steeler home game against the Atlanta Falcons. Can they bounce back? I am already on record that Atlanta will start 0-3 and win the division. Now, we
Not
get
if Tampa has anything to say about it.
we get to game number 3. Thursday Night Football. Buffalo at Miami. Big game. Both teams are 1-0. I did call Arizona taking the points. Thought I had them for the money line for most of that game. Buffalo, an incredible second half comeback on the legs and arm of Josh Allen. Now they go down to South Beach, which, again, another weird week one and another horrific incident involving Tyreek Hill that those police officers had no business doing what they did. Fortunately for Tyreek, he was able to play in the game and had a crazy touchdown in the game as well.
I
Miami now.
believe I believe one of his touchdown celebrations, he actually put his hands behind his back like he was getting arrested.
Um, so Miami now will look to go to 2-0. Buffalo will look to go to 2-0. First game on Amazon Prime of the season out of the AFC East. Number 2, NFC divisional round rematch. You mentioned this team about 15 seconds ago. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they looked really good against the Commanders. How good will they look when they go up against the Detroit Lions in a rematch? That's a 1 o'clock game. I will have that game on my second screen, and I cannot wait to see that. And then the number 1 game of the week for yours truly, 425 on CBS. Jim Nance, Tony Romo on the call, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, 3 out of the last 4 AFC championship games. Bengals, Chiefs.
Okay. I will tell you that we agree on only 2 of those games.
Okay.
And for me, my number 1 game is the NFC divisional round rematch. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Detroit Lions. Think about the psychology the Lions are dealing with right now. In week 1, they have a rematch of the wild card round. In week 2, they have a rematch of the divisional round. Both games last year came right down to the final seconds. In this year's game, it went into overtime against the Rams. Meanwhile, for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield looked great, 4 touchdowns, as you mentioned, against the Commanders. How's this game going to play out? So I've got that number 1 on my list. Number 2, this is the other game we agree with. Sunday Night Football. Number 1 pick from this year's draft against the number 2 pick from last year's draft. Caleb Williams against CJ Stroud. 2 young quarterbacks, 2 teams that we project to be in the playoffs this season. We project big things from Houston. Maybe not such big things from Chicago, but still somewhat high expectations. So it'll be interesting to see how this game plays out. All right, number 3, 2 0-1 teams in an NFC West battle out in the desert. LA Rams against the Arizona Cardinals. We both agreed. We said this last week. The Cardinals are going to be a pesky team this season. And it looked like they were going to go into Buffalo and pull off the win if Kyler Murray had just looked up and seen Marvin Harrison Jr. wide open. I think Arizona wins that game. But nonetheless, it didn't play out that way. And as I just mentioned, the Rams fell to the Lions in overtime. So how do both teams respond from games they both should have won?
Puka Nakua also out for the Rams. Are still dealing with offensive line injuries. That was number 6 on my list.
I okay. I just think this is going to be a fascinating matchup. It's the NFC West. It's very intriguing to me. Okay, number 4. I'm going to the land of 10,000 lakes, San Francisco at Minnesota. We talked about it a little bit. The Vikings looked good in week 1, but it was against the Giants. Now you have the San Francisco 49ers coming to town. Last season on Monday Night Football, Minnesota defeated San Francisco um, in Minnesota, but that was with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. Now they have Sam Darnold. And Brandon Ayuk finally got his contract resolved. Trent Williams got his contract resolved. How does San Francisco come off winning that game against the Jets, go across the country to play Minnesota? I think that's a very intriguing matchup. And then number 5, I'm headed to the Rocky Mountains. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who won in Atlanta without scoring a single touchdown. They kicked 6 field goals and somehow won.
Such a Steeler game.
It was hilarious. Going against Denver, who got 2 safeties in the game.
In the first half.
Yes, and yet they still lost. So, and we thought it was going to be maybe Russell Wilson playing his former team, but it was announced today that it's going to be Justin Fields again. So, this is just a very intriguing matchup to me. And
Can I make a bold prediction real quick?
Go ahead.
I know I said going into the year, I'm already wrong, obviously. I said, now I did say unless Russ gets hurt, there's no way Pittsburgh would want to play Justin Fields because of the trade situation. They'd have to give him a 4th if he plays over half the snaps versus 6. I'm a complete 180. I don't think Russell Wilson takes the field this year.
I'll give you my 2 honorary mentions. Colts Packers would be an honorary mention, and then my other one would be Seahawks at the Patriots.
I'm shocked you don't have Cincinnati and Kansas City anywhere near that list.
Just the way Cincinnati looked in week 1, it takes some of the intrigue away from that game, in my opinion.
Oh, if you're telling me I get Burrow and Mahomes, I don't care what they look like.
Burrow Mahomes usually delivers.
That's what I'm telling you. I think Cincinnati is going to give Kansas City everything they can handle. I don't think they're necessarily going to win the game, but I think this will be a way closer game than people think.
But weren't you the one that was just saying Kansas City could possibly blow them out?
No.
I could have sworn you said that earlier.
I said, listen, Cincinnati, it's possible they don't win the game, but I said they're going to play well.
Burrow does have a winning record against Mahomes. I'll give you that. But just the way Cincinnati played offensively, there's just something about it that was off-putting. And the fact that they're taking that type of performance, into Arrowhead Stadium against the back-to-back Super Bowl champs, given the way Kansas City's offense looked last week, I don't know.
I get the San Francisco, Minnesota intrigue because I was thinking about that game as well, and I get Rams, Arizona. I think Buffalo, Miami is also personally up there for me more than Pittsburgh, Denver. I get it. It could be a potential. I know you're higher on Denver than I am. It's really where it comes in at. I get Pittsburgh and the Denver and the, Mike Tomlin Fields going up to Mile High. But that Buffalo, Miami game could be potentially the difference between who wins the AFC East and who doesn't.
Don't know what Grandizer is trying to say here, but he says, Josh, he did not say that, nor did he intend to say that. Now, if he wanted to say it, that's something else. Um,
Basically, what he's saying is, I did not say that Cincinnati was going to get blown out by Kansas City.
okay, then I misinterpreted what you were saying, so I apologize there. But anyway, Cincinnati could hang tough with Kansas City, but I just didn't like the way Cincinnati played last week, and that took some of the intrigue away from that matchup. Simple as that.
Should we dive into week 2 in college football? A week that featured Penn State almost losing to Bowling Green. A week that featured a game that we both called that Texas would smash the ever living daylights out of what's left of Michigan, whatever Jim Harbaugh left them in a rubble. Notre Dame losing to an unranked football team.
Notre Dame's college football playoff chances are over. Um,
Well, what if they go undefeated the rest of the way?
they have to hope that USC is highly ranked by the end of the season when they play them. Otherwise,
That's fair.
No, it doesn't matter. They're at Purdue this week. Whoop-de-doo. Um, this is Notre Dame's fault because they got too cocky and they're like, oh, we don't need to be in a conference. We can be independent. Well, now you don't have the benefit of playing in a conference championship game. So that's your own fault. And oh God, did you and I ever call the Michigan game? Holy crap! That game was over in about 10 minutes. And as a Penn State fan, I have no idea what happened with that Bowling Green game. I don't know. I I don't know. I'm kind of like, okay, they are a MAC level team or a MAC team. They're coming into Penn State, Beaver Stadium. You should destroy them. Why are you having such a hard time with them? Why? Like Ohio State.
The James Franklin syndrome.
Yes, it is definitely the James Franklin syndrome. Trust me, I'm not picking them to beat Ohio State this season. No.
Let me say this. You already mentioned Ohio State. We talked about this a little bit last week about how, I want some more conference play early in the season. Big 12 started doing that. I think Utah and Baylor, I think somebody I know in the Big 12 matched up this week in conference play.
Yes, it was Baylor and Utah.
Ohio State, for whatever reason, they get 2 cupcakes, and then this week they get a bye. What's up with that this early in the season?
Yeah, Penn State's got a bye week this week too.
Why?
I don't
You just
know.
started.
I don't know.
Your bye week is playing Bowling Green, and you lost almost.
Yeah, I know. And then Ohio State gets to come off their bye week, and they play who? Marshall.
Whoa. Oh, okay. I like the Super Conference. I think it's made college football already more exciting. But you got to get these games early in the season. I told you last week, give me Ohio State, Penn State week 1, right out of the box.
I mean, yeah, Alabama is a 10-point favorite, but I love that Alabama is going into Camp Randall and playing Wisconsin.
At least it's something different. And hell, at least Texas and Michigan played. It felt like 2 big brands, even though Texas destroyed them.
Yeah, this week, Michigan is playing Arkansas State. Whoop-de-doo.
Joe Klatt, for the record, said during the Texas-Michigan game that Texas is this year's Michigan.
Okay.
The team who 2 years ago, you remember, got robbed in the national championship, did not get there. They were so close. And then they came back and they just steamrolled everybody. That's Texas this year. And I completely agree with them.
Yeah, I could.
I think the only team that challenges Texas is probably Ohio State right now. Because for the record, what the hell is Oregon? They almost lost again.
Yeah, I don't get it. And they play at Oregon State this week. But I'm just looking at all these big brand teams, and I'm like, grow a set and play each other. Like Ohio State, why are you scheduling games against like Marshall and Akron, Western Michigan? Why not play, I don't know, Alabama? LSU is available, play them. Like, you know, hey, Penn State, why don't you play, I don't know, like a Virginia Tech or play Miami,
Well, because
something.
they almost lost to Bowling Green.
Okay, fair. But do you get my point though? It's just like I get it. Like these little schools, they get paid like $2 million, $5 million to go generally get their ass kicked by Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, Georgia, the big schools. I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, Tennessee, grow a set. Go play Ohio State at Ohio State. Like, no, when Ohio State did their home and home with Notre Dame these past 2 seasons, it was great. Like, and both games were pretty good to watch. I'm like, why can't we do that? Like, I
Yeah, outside of Penn State was losing to Bowling Green and Notre Dame and losing and Oregon barely, holding on. This week was a bunch of blowouts again. I mean, even Colorado got blown out by the next Patrick Mahomes in Nebraska.
yeah, and I mean, Kansas Illinois was a pretty good game.
Yeah, but neither of those two teams, I'm talking about the actual good schools. Like, you think neither of those two teams are anywhere near a national championship?
Oh no, but I'm just pointing out that like, that was a pretty good game. I'm just pointing that out. But I do get your general point.
College football, they finally figured out they have to have big games, but can we do a big game weekly? Like, I think one of the problems with the Big Ten new media rights deal is you got to make Fox happy, you got to make CBS happy, you got to make NBC happy. There's not enough games for every network.
Yeah, I personally I liked it when the Big Ten was on ESPN and ABC. I loved it when Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit would call Ohio State, Wisconsin at Camp Randall. You
Well,
know,
you're more of a primetime guy, and I get it. I'm actually more in favor. I like when the big game, especially for college, is the 3:30 game. Personally,
I'm
I
also in favor of that. I agree with you there.
I kind of like the big game at 3:30. That way at night there's not a ton of big games. You can watch the West Coast games. You can do whatever you need and get ready for football on Sunday.
Yeah, but if it's like number 2 against number 1, I
Oh,
want.
Georgia, is it Georgia and Texas? I think who play in like week 8 or week 9.
I know Georgia plays at Alabama soon. That game's obviously going to be, prime time nationally televised. Um, I I think Georgia plays Texas soon.
I want to say it's late October, early November.
I can look up Georgia's schedule.
So that game is October 19th.
Yeah. So you got October 19th in Texas, and then September 28th, you got Georgia, Alabama at 7:30 on ABC because that's number 1 against number 4. I love that game's in prime time.
Georgia, Texas will be a preview of the national championship. You heard it here first.
I could definitely see that for sure.
With that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. Championship rings. It was a long show. We talked a lot of NFL, some college football stuff as well. We'll be back next week to break down week number 2 in the National Football League. Josh, football is officially back.
It most certainly is. Hopefully the Browns actually remember to plug in their PlayStation controller this week when they go down to Jacksonville.
Well, so the two things that we did not talk about that I'll quickly say, let's dive into this a little more next week because we didn't have time tonight with all the topics. But one, the kickoff rule, I actually think kind of works if you take the touchback to the 35-yard line and force more teams to kick off. When the teams are kicking off. You are seeing more returns. They're just not doing it enough. The other
Yeah.
thing I would say is Tom Brady. You got to be better in the booth, man. You ain't the goat in the booth. I was expecting a lot more.
Um, I did. I haven't gone back and listened to his broadcast yet, so I can't uh say whether it was good or bad.
That
I,
is fair.
I just got. I'm looking at a quick tweet from Mary Kay Cabot. It says updated NFL Special Counsel for Investigations Lisa Freef, who led the investigation into the Browns' Deshaun Watson that resulted in his 11-game suspension, is heading this one up too.
Hopefully, that means Watson will not play Sunday, but I doubt it. We'll see. We'll talk about it more next week and more news breaks. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in to tonight's edition of Championship Rings.
All right.